We learned this week that the producers felt that we should try to extend ourselves.
Oh no.
Our response exactly. We learned that with year's end approaching, we were being encouraged to take a longer view, and instead of, as usual, linking 3 or 4 vaguely amusing items from the week's news with silly sound effects and choruses of Monocle staff having their time wasted,
I have all the time in the world for you, of course.
It's my favourite time of the week.
It's a highlight.
I'll see you there in just a second.
Thanks all, appreciate it. We should instead reflect on what we learned in all of 2025. After all, a lot of stuff did happen, and you'd reckon that between it, the sum of human knowledge should have been enlarged somewhat. We learned back in April, for example, of the futility of waging a trade war against remote islands inhabited by nobody at all.
More bizarre still, the remote Australian territory of Heard Island, also tariffed 10%. Those tariffs may be hard to collect, though, because its main inhabitants are penguins.
A proposition one might have assumed did not require empirical testing, but every day's a school day, and we can now tick that one off. In the hope of underpinning this lesson with some pertinent numbers, or at least padding out another 20 seconds of this week's monologue, we did contact the press office of US Customs and Border Protection asking for some figures re how much they had actually collected in the way of tariffs on imports from the Heard and McDonald Islands, but they merely sighed somewhat wearily and hung up on us, which I think we can all agree is no way to respond to the honest inquiries of diligent reporters seeking to assiduously represent the interests of their listeners.
Come on.
Just get on with it.
You know, I was going to say right here, so without further ado, but just for that impertinence, here's some further ado.
I can't remember if I left it really nice. I took a photo of it when I plug it out.
I really like
I'm actually quite worried
I
about
don't know if this is it.
And there's more where that came from if you don't behave yourselves. Anyway, we mostly learned this year that returning to Earth's most powerful office, America's least qualified individual, and 8 years older and about 8 times crankier than last time round, was going to go pretty much as might have been expected.
I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Or not, for we learned that President Trump, seeking perhaps, who knows, to atone for the division and suspicion he had sown on his previous watch, was now absolutely focused on bringing peace to our rancorous world, including between countries which had never fought with, conceivably never heard of, each other.
Cambodia and Armenia, it was just starting and it was a bad one. Think of that.
We also learned that the president was no less resolute in his program of domestic reform, for which he also found the time to furnish his own metaphor.
The dramatic images, what was once the East Wing of the White House, now a pile of rubble.
For we learned that the White House was not the only American institution Trump was intent on demolishing, though he did at least spare the remnants of the rest of the US federal government the redecoration of the ruins with what very strongly appeared the contents of a storage locker acquired in the auction of the effects of the late Uday Hussein.
You might have noticed some changes to the Oval Office since President Trump moved back in. Specifically, more and more gold. Ornaments on the walls and adorning the fireplace. Door frames outlined in gold paint.
Anyway, we learned that the world would have to do substantially without US foreign aid, US security guarantees, US environmental and climate programs, honestly pretty much any idea at all what the US was going to do, say, or think from one day to the next. We learned basically that we would have to learn to live with the mightiest superpower ever gathered beneath one flag, apparently doing foreign policy by flinging darts at a whirling globe.
We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it.
What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state.
And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
We have not learned when any of this is actually going to happen as such, but we have learned something about the preferred presidential time frame.
But within about 2 weeks, I think we'll be able to say in American history.
Starting in about 2 weeks, we're building some brand new sections, large sections.
I will make that decision, I would say, over the next 2 weeks.
If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
But we learned that we may not have that long to wait around. For if we learned one thing in 2025 about where all of the above and more besides may be headed, we may have learned it from Albania, who visited upon us this.
Më lejoni t'ju kujtoj, rreziku I vërtet për kushtetutat nuk kanë qenë kurrë makinat, por vendimet njerëzore të njerëzve me pushtet.
That being Diella, Albania's new Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, who is herself an entirely AI apparition, and while this audio-only medium cannot do proper justice to Diella's splendid traditional Albanian costume, here's some traditional Albanian music while you imagine it. We subsequently learned that Diella was to be endowed with not fewer than 83 parliamentary assistants who will keep notes on parliamentary proceedings and, somewhat more ominously, offer advice to their flesh and blood colleagues, though it is not clear when we can expect this advice to tilt towards counsel that we, wretched organic life forms, submit to being pulped for biomass to fuel our new chatbot overlords, or indeed, as in this instance, overladies. In 2 weeks, possibly. It is arguable, of course, on the strength of humankind's endeavours this year that it's about all we deserve. We shall check out of 2025 by putting this proposition to the General Muttered Agreement crew.
Yeah.
For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.